In this video, I'm going to be explaining to you how exactly you can defeat the Tau army in Warhammer 40k. Now, I believe that the Tau army is a very, very strong army who has a lot of potential to do a lot of killing power and is a very hard enemy to go against if you can't really find ways of countering their strong abilities. So, I want to explain ways to you that you can isolate every single one of Tau's weaknesses to go in your favor to get the victory over an army that we all, let's face it, we all don't like versing. So let's just jump straight into it with how exactly you can defeat Tau. Before we do, I think personally that I am very knowledgeable in this field. With the amount of times that I've had to verse Tau, the amount of experience I've had with their abilities, different movement mechanics, and how they shoot especially, I know ins and outs of every single Tau unit there is, and I believe I'm very knowledgeable in the field when it comes to Tau. So let's just jump straight into it with how exactly you can defeat Tau when you're placed up against them in Warhammer 40k. Now, why is Tau a problem, and what makes them such a devastating army? Now, I'm not saying that there's some absolutely amazing god tier army like Chaos Space Marines or Eldari currently are, but they do play a very specific role into Warhammer that I think lots of other armies don't do, and I'm going to explain to that in just a minute. But before we do, I want to explain to you who are
So this is kind of dumb, but basically our Wi-Fi cut out, and I was unable to edit the rest of the footage for the video. So the rest of the video will go out edits, and it will just be me talking. So if you want to click off, that's fine, but just to let you know, there will be no more edits for the rest of the video.
So basically, the Tau army in Warhammer 40k in 10th edition is a horde / elite kind of army, I would say, that leans a bit more towards elite, that focuses heavily on shooting and isolating units they can target and teaming up with other units to deal greater damage when it comes to shooting. And basically, what I think makes them so devastating is they're one of the only units who have the option to win through tabling the opponent. Now, I'm not saying that other armies can't table the opponent. It is possible if you're going up against certain skill sets, or the situation works right, or the mission type you picked was successful, but in this case, the Tau have potential to almost table you every single time if your units basically get shot by them, and it's a very good potential. That's how they might choose to play the game. If it's going in their favor and all their hits are landing, they might actually lean into the more so, okay, well, you've only got a couple of units left, let's just kill them all. And basically, they're either going to wipe you off the table so the units you have to score left are pretty weak, or, like I said, table you off the opponent completely. But now, what exactly does Tau do to make them so bad? Well, Tau is going to do 99% of their damage in the shooting phase. Now, what sucks about the shooting phase is it's the only attacking phase that can be done basically the entire game throughout round 1 to round 5, unless there's like a specific rule that implies that units can't be shot, which, I mean, there really isn't besides like the specific Overwatch stratagems. But the point is that Tau are going to be doing most of their damage in the phase that generally offers a bit more damage and 10th edition is leaning more into. So trying to figure out ways to counter their attacking and stop it is hard, and trying to get more into melee with them and forcing them into melee is even harder, considering that they're not have any melee full stop. So they're going to be really wanting to focus on staying away from you or tabling you to push forward. So getting them to come to you or getting to them in the first place is even harder than if you're versing like Chaos Space Marines or Votan or something like that, who like shooting, but Chaos Space Marines aren't really shooting, I would say. Now, it can be hard to get cover with them. The problem is, it was their marker-like keyword. If they're following the correct army rule, they get, if the unit is a marker-like keyword, they gain the ignores cover ability, which sucks, because now cover is very easy to get in the game, and suddenly if they're completely removing that rule from the game, it becomes a lot harder to deal with them in different situations. So suddenly you can't necessarily just hide your units or deploy in a way that will allow you to move but get benefit of cover, and it takes a lot more time, especially if they have a bunch of like Pathfinder teams or Breacher teams with the marker like keyword up front, being able to view all your units, so their heavy units can just rail you down. Now, like I said, they will table you, or they'll get near tabling you. Now, when I say this, it's very, very important that you do not underestimate their damage. Their damage will kill you no matter what you do. Or no matter what, not saying no matter what you do, but it's a very high chance of killing. Example with the Tau railgun, which has like 1 or 2 shots, and eventually it's got like strength 26. It's going to be landing on a 3, which you can re-roll because of the ability. Gets a -1 to hit if you're going as a monster or vehicle. Has a strength 26 and is going to do d6 plus 6 damage. And not including the Storm Surge, who has the ability to roll like 2d6 shots, I think it is, and has like 4 damage with each shot, and all the amounts of heavy walkers and the intense amount of vehicles they're going to be taking, the damage output they're going to give, especially with their crisis suit blobs, is even worse. So do not underestimate their damage, because it will get to you if you choose to let it slide. Example, if you just leave your units out in the open, there's a good chance they are going to die. And another thing is that it's really hard to take angles with Tau, and Tau can just set up pretty much anywhere on the board, because when your most of your damage is being done in shooting, and the army can't really, they probably have one of the best shooting in the game, or the best at long range shooting in the game, it becomes really hard to outmaneuver them and outwork them and like find cover, because they can position themselves in so many different angles, because they don't really need to play defensively, because, well, what are they defending against? Shooting? They're going to shoot first anyway. So, or, well, not shoot first anyway, but they're going to do a lot of shooting in the shooting phase. So you need to never underestimate how much damage they're going to do, because it most likely will do, it will most likely get a lot and lot and lot of killing. Now, you may think that Tau, okay, a lot of shooting, but it could kill them, right? Well, that's not exactly it, because most Tau units are going to be saving on a 2-up, and they're going to have quite high toughness, considering the amount of, like, walkers you're going to be taking, and the more heavier style units, like the Riptides, you're going to be taking a bunch of those, the Storm Surge, the Hammerhead, like, some Ghost Keels, like, you're getting Crisis Blobs, and you're going to get your Commanders, like, all those units, even the Devilfish, and all the other gunships, like, we'll talk about them, it's going to be a very hard kind of offense to go up against, when the units that are shooting you that you need to kill are so hard in the first place to reach because of their range. Like, I'm thinking, like, Storm Surge has like a range of 72, so it takes up like the entire board, and so it's hard to get to them because they're going to deploy in a place where you can't get them in the first place. So trying to stop their shooting is even harder, and not including the fact that all of their units are pretty much vehicles, which means if you have Big Guns Never Tire, like, if you charge them and try lock them in combat, they're just going to use Big Guns Never Tire and get that -1 to hit effect. Cool. It's very hard to get them to stop shooting, considering, like I just said, the Big Guns Never Tire rule applies to them. And another one is that, okay, well, I could just move block them, but the problem is that Tau does move blocking pretty decently well. They have got, I would say, probably 4 units who play really well into their move blocking. They've got the Stealth Suits, who have the Infiltrator, who are pretty good for the points you get. I mean, not amazing, but then the main factor is going to be the Ghost Kill, who's like a 2-up save, who's got the Stealth, who's got the, you can allocate 2 attacks per game to a 0 damage, and has Infiltrator. So you're looking at a very strong unit who's just going to sit there and be like, okay, shoot me. What are you going to do about it? And then you've got the Crude Hounds, which you can take up to 8, who all have Scout 6. So suddenly you can just place them at the front of your deployment zone, scout them up, and then move them into position, make a line, and it's very hard to get to Tau, because suddenly the place you need to get them to is either shooting or doing really good melee, in which you can't really get to melee and they're going to outshoot you anyway. So finding a way to position yourself to destroy them in the first place is 10 times harder. So that is basically what makes Tau so good. And in the short terms of it, they're just really good at shooting. They're really hard to kill, well, some units really hard to kill, and make them stop shooting, and they're really good at stopping you from getting to them in melee. So, well, Tau seems impossible to defeat. You've got these strong units, you've got these powerful, just, like, fantastic, just awesome, incredible, like, saving units, shooting units, abilities to have, like, the -1 to hit, and then get another -1 to hit with heavy, which means you'll be hitting on, like, incredible, like, 3s or maybe even 2s if you're the correct amount, and honestly, it just sucks. So how exactly can we go up against this army that is so very annoying? I'm going to tell you this on the next slide. The only way that I believe we can beat Tau is this one simple strategy that I've used every single time I've versed my friend who actually plays Tau, and that is to hamstring them by round 3. You see, Tau's entire purpose is shooting. What makes them not the best army in the game is simply they have no melee. Literally, they have battlesuit fists, who hits like on a 5-up, and the chance of you getting in melee anyway is like horrendous because they have no melee buffs, no melee alterations, and all their melee just full stop sucks. So Tau are going to be doing all of their damage in the shooting phase. So everything that requires them to, well, do anything in the game is going to be through shooting. So this is how we're going to isolate their weakness. We're going to exploit their biggest strength and make it not their biggest weakness, but make it not even their biggest strength anymore. And that's exactly how we're going to do it. And this is going to be it. Now, the reason I say hamstring them by round 3 is because on round 3, thanks to their detachment rule, like Exemplar of the Cao Yun, they get sustain hits from battle round 3 onwards. That means every single unit. The Titanic units, vehicle units, your Riptides with their Nova Charge gives them devastating wounds, with the Storm Surges, with like your Piranhas, with your Devilfish, with your Gunships, with all your Pathfinders and Marker like keywords, all of them get sustain hits. And this is what makes them super duper duper deadly, because suddenly you'll be hitting on 4s, maybe even 3s if you get heavy, and maybe even a potential of 2s, and getting sustain hits. So when they get to battle round 3, it's pretty much very, very well they're going to do a lot of damage to you. So this is why I say you need to hamstring them by round 3, because when you're versing Tau, the game goes from, okay, we're playing till round 5 to we're playing till round 3. You need to keep this in your head that when you're playing against Tau, it's like, okay, well, right now with the attachment rule anyway, it's going to be, okay, it's a race to battle round 3, and from battle round 3 onwards, it's pretty much winner's pick. So you need to coordinate yourself to isolate them and stop them from getting to battle round 3 and doing all the sustain hits. So how exactly do we do this? And that's going to be through 1, making their shooting 10 times worse. Now, how do we do that? And that's going to be simply through locking as many units in combat as possible. Now, I remember I said to you that big guns never tire. Well, if you believe and think about this, it's going to be, okay, they get big guns never tire. That means that they can shoot out of combat and shoot in engagement range, but they get a -1 to hit. And the good thing about Tau is that not all of their shooting is, well, incredible, because they naturally hit on 4s. Well, the majority of their unit do anyway. So hitting on 5s is a huge benefit against going into them, because suddenly it's orc shooting, and orc shooting is the large quantity. Quantity. And when Tau have quite a lot, small quantity, hitting on 5s is 10 times worth for them. Including this, if you eliminate all their marker light and observer unit options, which means they can no longer or have a very low chance of getting that -1 to hit effect or the ignores cover ability, it becomes a lot harder to do anything. So suddenly, their one that would counter the big guns never tire effect would now go into play, which means they are definitely going to be hitting on 4s. Now, how do we get rid of this? Well, it's going to be removing all of their marker light units, and these units are definitely going to be placed quite decently out front, considering they want to get view of almost every enemy so they can isolate it with all their heavy units behind. It's not too hard to actually get to them. So what I would recommend is putting a lot of firepower into removing all the observer and marker light units. This could be the Pathfinder team, the Breacher team, the drones, or the strike teams, or any kind of smaller, more condensed units. You can check if they have the observer ability or if they have the marker light keyword on like their data sheets. But it's best to understand that most of the smaller, more compact units are going to be their biggest option for taking the observer unit. Now, another way you can do this is basically by, how do I put this? It's going to be through making as much distraction as possible. So when Tau is shooting, the best thing they're going to do is team up against one unit. Similar to how Space Marines with their Oath of Moment, where they get like the same ability. Tau do that, but less in a rules way and more in like a metaphorical way. Their kind of whole lore plays into them targeting one enemy and teaming up against a larger foe to bring them down. Kind of like Oath of Moment with Space Marines, but it's more like just like, okay, we all work as one together and shoot. So what you can do is you can spread yourself thin and create a lot of key points, a lot of center points for them to shoot at, because suddenly you've got 4 tanky units, 3 massive infantry squads, and 1 heavy vehicle that's like moving up. Suddenly, that's a lot for Tau to shoot. So suddenly, all of their shots are going out and spreading out through your army. If you only give them one option to shoot, they're going to take that one option. They're going to take it very, very well. But if you give them upwards of 3 or more, it becomes a lot harder to isolate a unit and kill them, because suddenly they have to supply all their shots in this one, all their shots, some of them more of their shots in that one, and then the last bit of shrivel they have is going to be into that one. And to add on to this point, which I talked about in some previous videos, it's going to be making sure you have designated units who are going to be taking this role, especially when you go up against Tau. So once you have these units, you need to go, okay, these 2 units I'm happy to sacrifice because this unit is my most important. For example, when I was versing my friend who was playing Tau and I was playing Orcs, I positioned myself in a way where Mosrog Skragvad, where my truck, to a truck to an extent, and my Death Killer War Truck, my 6 Warbikers, and a Warboss and Mega Armor with my 4 Mega Knobs were in a direction that allowed them to be shot more often. So suddenly they fulfilled their purpose, which was what they needed to do, which was soak damage, so the rest of my unit could move forward. So my Squighog boys could move forward, so my mech guns could position themselves correctly and not take too much time. So I could screen the backline, so my flash kits could get in the right direction, so everything could make sense, so that I could push forward and try and do as much damage as possible. Isolate all of their vehicles and stop them and moving up. But yeah, that's basically going to be how to eliminate Tau. The only option, I believe, it's a very strong army. You don't have a lot of options. You can counter them, so it's basically going to be hamstringing them by round 3, stopping them from getting that amazing round 3 shooting by simply eliminating their shooting at all cost potential. That means stratagems, deep strikes, locking in combat, getting rid of marker light units, and isolating and spreading yourself thin. Basically, yep, that's the video, and I hope you really enjoyed this. Basically, not too many slides this video. I'm more trying out something new where I do maybe 3 or 2 slides, but I talk a lot in those specific slides, giving you more value. So if you like this, simply leave a comment or a like, or tell me I'm wrong or I'm right. So yeah, that was my how to destroy Tau, or how to beat Tau basically video, and I hope you really enjoyed it. So hope I'll catch you in the next one.